I'd like to call the meeting to order. May we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Bales.
Here.
Councilmember Curran.
Here.
Councilmember Dewar.
Here.
Councilmember Garcia.
Here.
Councilmember Schwartz.
Here.
Vice Mayor Adams.
Here.
Mayor Stone.
Here. This time I'll turn the meeting over to Councilmember Garcia for the pledge.
Thank you. If you could all stand for the pledge, please. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And if you could all remain standing for just one moment as we approach the upcoming Veterans Day holiday, I would like to take the opportunity to thank all of our veterans. Mayor Stone is one of them, of course, but all of our veterans here in the room tonight and also in our community. We have such great ties to our military families here in the community, and we're so grateful for their efforts. Also, too, to our law enforcement. A lot of prior military are also in our law enforcement. So if you remain standing for just a few moments, Lord God, we ask that you please protect our veterans, our active military, and our law enforcement. Please watch over their families as they selflessly serve our country. And we thank you for this opportunity to gather here this evening. Amen. Thank you.
Amen. Thank you. All right, we have an agenda before us this evening. Any changes? Motion?
Seeing none, move to approve the agenda.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the agenda as submitted. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion carries. Approval of the minutes. The minutes this evening to be approved are October 25th, the regular meeting. Any changes?
Move we approve the minutes October 26th, Your Honor.
Second.
25th, I do believe. Is that correct?
25th.
All right, thank you. I have a motion and a second to approve the minutes for October 25th as submitted. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion carries. Next, ordinances, resolution, and PUDs. First off is ordinance 21-23, and this is the second reading. And are there any updates, Mr. Paquette, that you would like to add? This is on the vacant property registration, and this was sponsored by Councilmember Dewar. So any comments from council?
No, they fixed it.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve ordinance 21-23.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to -23. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion carries. Thank you. Next is ordinance 21-24.
Ordinance number 21-24, an ordinance by Beavercreek City Council enacting a new Chapter 39 Income Tax Code to the codified ordinances of the City of Beavercreek.
Thank you. Mr. Casera.
Good evening, Mayor and members of City Council. Tonight before you, you have the new tax code and the ordinance implementing the tax code. And we've discussed this for a couple of months now and ready to bring it forward. We've made some modifications to the old one. And again, because the income tax was not passed, that particular ordinance just expires, I guess, and so we have to bring forward a new one. And what I wanted to do was go through the key points of the new ordinance and highlight some differences from the past ordinance, and then answer any questions you might have along the way. So the first key in the code of tax code is the purpose, and obviously that has remained the same from the previous time, which is to provide funds for general municipal operations, maintenance, equipment, services, facilities, infrastructure, and capital improvements. That's remained the same from the previous ordinance, and again, still the impetus for creating the tax in the tax code itself. So again, the tax rate is going to be 1% in the tax code. And I just wanted to make clear that in the city charter, The council has no power to adopt and levy a city income tax without a majority vote of the electors voting on such a levy. So again, you don't have the power to implement a 1% municipal income tax as the ORC allows, because our charter language prohibits that. It basically says in order to pass the income tax, it has to be passed by the voters. So again, we're a little unique in that regard, but a important point as we go forward here with some of the other points that we're bringing up in the tax code. And again, any change to the tax rate, if the state ORC try to change it in the future, or again, city council had the desire to change it, they couldn't again do that with our charter language without taking it to the voters. So just wanted to make sure that that was clear to everybody. There's been some confusion about, is it in the charter? Can you guys initiate the, just to clarify that that is within the tax code and it's clearly spelled out that way. So again, the other key point is we're trying to diversify the city's revenue. We've talked a lot about that in the strategic planning process, that we're heavily dependent on property taxes. That's a negative thing, and from the taxpayer standpoint, and they would like to have that diversified a little bit, and our only option really is an income tax other than property taxes. So again, what we have in this particular tax code is an emphasis on terminating additional tax levies than we did in the first initiative. You remember that in the last one, we were going to let the 3.4 mil street tax levy expire when it came to its 5-year termination date, and it didn't pass. So what we realized is that the residents wanted additional tax relief, and so what we did was we went back to analyze that and determined that we could, in essence, terminate these 5 levies if the income tax were to pass. So the other key component of the tax code is the effective date. Again, if it would be on the May ballot, and should it be passed, the effective date of collecting the income tax would be 1/1/23. And you'll see why that's important in just a couple of slides here. Wanted to talk a little bit about the allocation. When we reduced the property tax revenue for the levies that we're terminating, we realized that the police and streets still needed that money to operate. And so in the allocation, it talks about replacing that tax with the income tax and allocating the amount that they lost because of the levies rolling off to those particular funds. So again, they're not losing any operating and capital funds because we're rolling off the property tax levies. We're making them whole in essence. The other thing is that we added another level of service. We realized that in doing some analysis that we're down several positions, in particular in police. You've been hearing that for probably the last 4 or 5 years, how the national average in the number of police per number of residents and the call volume is extremely low. And we realized that we would like to put that as an allocation directly in the tax code to say, should the income tax be passed, we will be hiring 5 additional police officers and 5 public services workers to enhance the service and to ensure that we can handle all the additional workload and the additional residents and non-residents that come into the city every day. So we wrote that into the allocation of funds. Then again, there's an allocation for the future operating needs. We projected out the needs of all the funds and basically said what will they need in the near future for 5 or 10 years and built that into the allocation funding too. And then obviously we've been talking about at least 5 years or maybe 10 years now, the infrastructure backlog that we have on the books right now. And again, those projects, what we want to do is allocate funding for those backlog infrastructure projects that basically don't have or don't they have little or no funding mechanism. So again, stormwater, that type of thing, it really has no mechanism to generate any revenue for those projects. So again, without that, they just sit there and go unattended, while every year the infrastructure gets more deteriorated. So we wanted to make sure that that was addressed in the allocation of funds also. Again, just to emphasize the fact that in 2016, the state updated the Ohio Revised Code related to income tax. Basically, it took variables that municipalities had, about 15 of them, down to about 2 or 3. And those are the only areas that you have any sort of discretion over. But basically, we have to follow the Ohio Revised Code. So one of the ones that we'll talk about in just a few seconds is the taxing folks that are 18 years old or less. Again, before 2016, it was left up to the jurisdictions whether or not they tax that. The Ohio Revised Code in 2016 says you will tax them. So again, the city council doesn't have an option within the tax code to exclude them from the taxation. But just to reemphasize, and none of these have really changed over the years, but the exempt income that's part of this tax code includes retirement benefits, Social Security, annuity, active military pay, reserve, National Guard pay, intangible income, which is your interest, capital gains, and dividends, alimony and child support, and unemployment compensation. So again, those exemptions are still within the tax code that we attempted a couple of years ago and remains in there. So again, providing that big benefit for those people that have income in those particular categories. Again, the taxable income, that hasn't really changed either. Basically, salaries, qualifying wages, commissions, tips, gratuities, bonuses, everything that's basically earned in the city, residents and non-residents will be taxed. Again, there's the exemption for under 18. We couldn't provide that exemption, so it is in the tax code. And then the tax liability, if it's under $10, there's no tax liability. It basically just is a nuisance refund or a payment, so it's been excluded from the tax code. And here's another big one that we kept in. Obviously, we've always wanted to give the credit of the tax paid to another municipality. So any residents that are working in another city, and that city has a tax rate equal to or higher than the 1% for Beavercreek, then the residents will not pay income tax to Beavercreek on those wages. So again, it's if you're working in another community, they have a higher rate than us. City of Beavercreek will not tax you on anything past that 1% credit. So again, those that are currently, for instance, for Dayton, paying the 2.5 would not have to pay any taxes in Beavercreek if you're working over there right now. So again, the credit's up to 1% of the tax rate. And what we wrote in the tax code is that the 100% credit shall not be changed without approval of the majority of the electors. So again, making it so that the residents would have to vote for us reducing that tax credit. In a lot of cities, they don't have that provision, and city councils there have elected to reduce that credit without the voice of the residents, and we felt that it was an important point that we wanted to emphasize and put it in the tax code and make sure that everybody was aware of what our intent is, and that is to keep that 100% credit. And if we ever decided to change that, we'd have to go back to the voters to ask their permission. So a couple of other things real quick. Collection at the source. Again, most of the taxes will be collected by the employers. They'll be submitting that to us in payroll deductions. The confidentiality, there was always questions about that. Again, all tax return information is completely confidential. And there was always a question about appeal. So if the city decided to tax something and people felt that it wasn't within the preview of the tax code, did they have a format to go and challenge that? And they do. And the tax code is set up for a local board of tax review to review the circumstances and to decide on that provision that was in question. The other thing is that we've talked about in the past is that one of our goals, and we've talked about it a little bit, was that once the income tax was approved and in place, could the city council go in and reduce property taxes further? So the example that came up was if our projections were, say, $10 million and we received $11 million, could the council go in and say, let's take that $1 million and reduce the millage for one of the other existing levies that's still out there? And the point is, you could do that, and we would just send that to the county auditor to do. And we would normally do that as part of the budget process. So again, there's a mechanism set up to do that, to achieve that goal if we wanted to eliminate future property taxes going forward. So just wanted to clarify that, because again, that's a question, is that what could happen in the future? And again, we made the budget process more open. We've actually put a line in the tax code about how the budget process works, starting with the tax budget all the way through our regular budget process, and the open hearings and the open meetings that we have about that, where all these things will be discussed as the revenue comes in. So one of the last things I wanted to talk about was the timeline. Again, to get it on the May 3rd ballot, we actually need to have the tax code adopted, and that takes 2 readings. Then it will be effective 30 days after the second reading, and then January 24th or the meeting before that, you could do that, I guess. But then we replace the resolution on the ballot, and again, reconfirm that council's desire to reduce or eliminate additional tax levies should income tax revenues exceed projections. So that would be a resolution that we could put in place too in the January 24th agenda. So, and again, then the election would be May 3rd. Right now, after this reading, if it's successful, then we will start to put everything back up on the website for the city, again, including FAQs, as much information about the taxes that we can get up there. And also, we already have established a email address where people can send us questions directly, and we can get back to them within a day or two related to anything that they may have after they look at the tax code or have specific questions about their individual circumstances. So that'll be coming up after, assuming a affirmative vote here. So now I'd like to turn it over to our legal staff that will do his legal thing.
Yeah, I just want to be real brief, and I think when you look at this, I think it's important if you were to pull out the 2020,
Got your mic on.
it's on.
Okay, there we go. I hear.
Yeah, if you were to pull out the 2020 tax draft and this one, you would find probably 99 to 98% is exactly the same. The difference, I mean, the rate's the same, but the levies have changed. There were some definitional changes that the state adopted this summer. Those were added in. But all told, it's probably a page of changes, so it's very, very minor. And the other things I think I just want to stress is that, you know, in terms of items that really are committed to and subject to, subject to going back to the people, one, the rate, that can't change unless there's another election. I mean, the council would have to put it back to change that rate. And two, I think, which is really unusual, and I don't know of any community that's done this, but that is also that you're putting in with respect to the credit. That is subject to, it says, cannot be changed without a vote of the public, at the electors. So, I mean, that's going to be fixed in there too, and you're putting in these levies. So beyond that, I mean, those are critical things, I know, to the citizens and the council. But beyond that, it's standard tax code. So, but anyhow, I just wanted to point out a couple little points there that I think are important to note. There's a lot of things in here that are committed to.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you, Bill. And we'll go through a public hearing here and see what kind of questions we have. So this being the first reading of this ordinance, it is a public hearing. And so at this point, we would like to open it up to the floor for the public input. The comments are expected to be no more than 3 minutes, but you can have 2 people donate time to you for a total of 9. So, anyone that would like to address council on ordinance 21-24, please come forward. Give us a name and address.
Harold Lewis, 1423 Town Hall. Contrary to popular belief, I am not opposed to an income tax. I'm tired of hearing people say that about me. I am opposed to an income tax with absolutely zero changes to the city charter. Okay? Let's grow up. It's an ordinance. I've said and heard, we can't change the ordinance. It's an ordinance. You people change it. We don't vote on it. That's why the 1% needs to be in the charter. The tax credit needs to be in the charter, not an ordinance. Granted, you can change that anytime you want. Stop the nonsense. You can change it anytime you want. The thing about the state, there's rumors. It's been going on for a couple years. If they do it the same way they did the 18-year-olds, do we get the chance to vote on it? The answer is no. We didn't get a chance to vote on the 18-year-old tax reduction. No. Put things in the charter, for crying out loud. Why not? The city manager says we can't have a charter vote until November. Wrong. Wrong. It's wrong.
Okay.
Okay, I don't care. It's wrong.
Not point fingers.
The Constitution does not say that. Explain then why Dayton just had 6 charter reviews in May. 6 charters. Cleveland, Cincinnati. I just looked at the big cities. Okay? We can have a charter vote in May. Let's do it. Otherwise, I'm going to oppose this. I want protection for the people. Protection. And what happens if this fails? Okay, you're bringing up tax levies next year. That's in the briefing. I still don't understand why this council is so reluctant to change the city charter. We want the protection. The people who are going to be paying it want the protection that you people will not give them. It's that simple. You will not give them protection. Zero. Okay, if they want to dispute the November, dispute it. Look at the Constitution. I've got the documents right here. I've got where Cincinnati, Cleveland, Dayton, all passed charter amendments in May. Don't tell me you can't do it. You can do it. It's ridiculous. It's time that, come on, folks. Every time you people vote, it's a 7-0 vote. How many of you are trying to protect the people? Not a one if you keep saying everything's in the ordinance. Not a one. It's getting absurd in a way. So please, put it on as a charter amendment. There's a lot of people that will vote for it if you do. There's a lot of people who's going to vote against it if you don't. People are going to be paying it will vote against it because there's no protection for it. None whatsoever.
Okay, the timer went off.
Especially when they find out that they're going to be paying more where they work.
I thank you. All right, anyone else?
Yeah, my name is Sundar Patla. I'm a resident of Beavercreek. The gentleman before me, I think he has a very strong reservation, charter, ordinance, whatever, but he's in favor of income tax. So he was very strong in his argument, and if we can do something to incorporate his wishes, that will be added. and I don't know the intricacy, I mean, your lawyer, attorney can address, but I think income tax is a good idea, that only 2 cities in the whole state of Ohio don't have it. It's about time to do it. Last time, we just lost by 2%. So I think people are now aware of, they know it. And with the appraisal value went up, so they'll be paying more tax, real property tax, because of that effective rate of city of Beavercreek, 16%, whatever, will stay same. With income tax, it could go lower, and then people at large will be beneficial. So I highly recommend having the income tax pass. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, who's next? Don't hesitate. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Brian Jarvis, 825 Timberwood Drive, Beavercreek. Mayor, Council, thank you so much for having this evening. We're pleased that Council is considering this alternative revenue source that Mr. Casera just detailed. Each year, more and more taxpayers in Beavercreek are being adversely affected by higher and higher property taxes. This is just going to keep on happening. We're having another triennial assessment in a couple more years. It's going to happen again. We've looked into data for the 130 largest cities in Ohio. None have ever put the income tax in the charter on the first vote. It's always been an ordinance. Many of them have then come back in that next year or the next November to have it put into their charter. Very, very commonly done. When we asked them why, they told us that they didn't believe they could put it in the charter on the first vote because of the language in the ORC that has to be met. Again, I don't know if that's true or not, but to a city, that's what we were told. And again, somebody needs to check as to whether or not it's possible to do. You certainly don't want to put the entire ORC into the charter, but again, something to look into. Beavercreek's total tax collections, property taxes, $20 million a year. And that's the highest total property tax collected in Montgomery and Greene counties of any city at all, and the 6th highest of any city in the state of Ohio. It's just huge. But it generates the 4th lowest amounts of revenue per person in Montgomery and Greene County of any city, and the 5th lowest per person in the entire state. Property taxes are not an efficient form of taxation. It's the harshest form because it layers it on a single source, and that's properties. It doesn't spread it among the largest base, which is what you want to do to keep things lower. Bellbrook in Greene County and Cortland in Trumbull County have no income tax, but they're bedroom communities of only 7,000 people. They've got no infrastructure, no operations to speak of. And because of this low revenue source that we have in Beavercreek, it's a high property tax, but it's a low dollar amount overall. Beavercreek Public Safety doesn't have the staffing it should. Beavercreek Public Works doesn't have the staffing it should. Beavercreek Roads, infrastructure, capital improvements, maintenance, everything is of lower quality than it could be if you had an additional revenue source that was spread among more people. Property taxes just don't do that properly. Income tax is less burdensome because, again, it spreads across a broader base. With this income, you could be funding all those things that are currently shorted. The city has sought input from its stakeholders, those who want to see the city succeed, and what they want is exceptional services. They don't want to pay much more for those services. They want a property tax reduction to offset most of the income tax, and they want specifics about how it's used. You've done all those things. Again, I want to thank you for having this potentially on the ballot. I hope you move forward with this. There can be more discussions later, but again, for right now, I think that's something we need to go forward with. Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right, who else would like to address council? Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor, trustees. First of all, to our returning trustees that got reelected, congratulations. Sir, what you've heard tonight is that Mr. Ciceros did do a very detailed, the pros and cons concerning the new Fair Funding Committee initiative on the tax, on the earned income tax that we're trying to put back on the ballot. And the timing is perfect. The timing is right. The environment and the citizens of Beavercreek are ready, in my mind, to pass and entertain this tax. Obviously, you've seen where the pros and cons are, which levies will be credited, and where the funding will be applied to in terms of supporting the additional public servants as well as the additional police force members that we need. Other than that, the additional infrastructure that is sorely needed on our aging facilities. So I welcome the opportunity to serve again and to help the Fair Funding Committee to support this initiative. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, who else would like to address council?
Chad Wilding, 2428 Brown Park Drive, Beavercreek, Ohio. Good evening, council.
Good evening.
Mr. Mayor, happy Veterans Day to you. Thank you for your service.
Thank you, sir.
Once again, we find ourselves back at the beginning of an arduous process. So we've talked for many years now about wanting to make sure the power of the purse stays in the community's hands. And this again is one example of that not occurring. The termination language in here without a definition of what termination means is just a word, because there's a couple different ways that could be construed. And I know in March, everybody on this council will evaluate and ask the auditor to send all the tax money, but that's not necessarily a termination if you choose not to, right? So there's no discussion in here on how to terminate those levies with the auditor. So this ordinance can change. As Hal has pointed out, this is not a charter amendment, which means if it was in the charter, only the citizens could change it. So the 1%, I have no doubt can't change because that's already in the charter. But the credit, you could change this ordinance, and that credit could then be controlled by council. That kind of information, the credit should be in the charter. There's probably a few other pieces that are in here, if not the whole thing. But the concern is the levies give us the power to say where we want our money spent. Rolling back or terminating those levies are great, but not specifying how that's going to be used in the budget just leaves it open for interpretation by future council. Because even saying that the revenue generated will go to the levies that have been terminated, that's freezing those, not increasing those budgets, and gives the power of the purse to the council, not to the citizens. So it's just, we just continue to do this every 3 years, and I hope the communication is honest and straightforward, and we don't spend too much from the city side on pushing people to want to vote for this. You guys have the power in your message. Thank you.
Thank you, Chad. Who else would like to address council?
Hi, Mark Walsh, 434 Ramsgate Drive.
Good evening.
And I just wanted to say, good evening, and just wanted to say I support the income tax. To me, it's important to help support city services that we need. Would also help support our police department. My own concern is it would help get the city out of property tax and hopefully lower the property tax enough that it would make it easier for the schools to pass their levies. As we all know, the schools have had some problems passing levies in the last few years. And I'm concerned with the quality of the schools if that continues. So I think this ordinance would help support city services. And again, I trust you guys. I think you're all doing a good job, and appreciate your service on the council, which sometimes can be thankless. So have a good day. Thank you.
Thank you, Doug. Anyone else like to address council this evening? Don't be shy. All right, seeing none, we will close the public hearing, and we will open it on the floor for council. And maybe we'll start to my far right. Councilman Bales, any comments?
Thank you. Maybe just a couple of things. First of all, I will state my opinion that I do believe we have a number of people in the community that are on fixed incomes. And I find it important to reduce the property tax burden and find an alternative revenue source. So, like before when we've tried, I too will endorse this effort. But I would like maybe for you to comment, either Mr. McHugh or Mr. Landrum, maybe about some of the questions we heard tonight. For example, if we pass an ordinance stating all of these stipulations, how that might be affected in the future, as well as maybe any research you've done, perhaps on a charter only being available in November, charter amendment vote.
Okay, well, okay, first, as I say, under Ohio Revised Code, one, our charter and Ohio Revised Code is that, you know, our charter says right now, there is no income tax without a vote of the people. If you vote at 1%, you know, I guess in theory, under Ohio law, you could reduce it, right? But I think the assumption is you're going to increase it above 1%, and the law is that has to be voted on. So, you know, 1%, if one for the charter, you could have a 1% income tax. Anything over that, you have to vote on it. So I think that deals with that. I think council also is, you know, putting a restriction on itself by saying that in this voted agreement, this tax code that the citizens are being asked to vote on, you're saying that we cannot change this credit without a vote of the people. And I would surmise, and I would suggest that any effort by a future council to change that without a vote of the people is, I think any court would enjoin you. I mean, it says you have to do this. And I think the citizens would have a very good argument to say that was a condition of this. And the same thing with respect to the tax levies. You know, some of these are permanent, so, but within the allowance of the code, you can terminate them. And fortunately, these are the ones that, in work with the county auditor, will allow us to do that. So in terms of the charter in another date, May is a primary date. Our charter says at a regular election, the regular, you know, in the Ohio Revised Code, as I wrote in the little thing that I think Mr. Manager refers to, is referring to recollection, which is, and as I said, it is a municipal election, regular municipal election, and I think that was the intent of the charter, and that occurs in the first November of odd years. That's what our literally says. You know, you could argue that, but I think this May, if you look, was a primary. May's are primary, tend to be primary, special, and clearly a special election would not be appropriate either for this. I think the intent of when they drafted the charter was to make it a regular election, and a regular, under Ohio Revised Code, is defined, really refers to regular municipal election. Now, you know, you could maybe make an argument that an even year regular election, which would be effectively a county-state election, you could maybe make that argument, but it's still a regular election. So.
May I ask for clarity?
Yes.
So Steve, just for clarity, you're saying that it's our charter that is restrictive, not the state. You're saying it's our charter that is restrictive, not the state. when it comes to when charter changes are on the ballot?
Yeah, well, the state talks about general elections, but our charter does talk about regular elections, yes.
Our charter states it has to be a regular.
Regular election, 1307.
which would essentially allow the ORC or City of Cincinnati's charter may permit it to happen in
Not just an
May,
election, any election.
where your interpretation of our charter permits ours only to happen in November.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yes. Yeah, that was the point when I wrote that little.
yeah. Yeah, very, very good.
We're a little more restrictive.
I can answer to one more thing that, based on termination, you asked about that was mentioned. Mr. Casera got with the county auditor on that, and these, by definition, when terminated, the resolution that council will do in January will instruct termination of. So termination of being, they're done. If you're going to ever do anything again, you'd have to put it back out for election. It'd be a total different levy. So this definition this process doesn't have anything to do with that yet. That's later. But when the termination will be done, which council, I think, is in our plan, that if we do move forward to put it on the ballot, that the termination notice and January resolution will be done at the same time. Mr. Graham, the county auditor, said those are terminated. Those are not suspended. They can never be re-engaged. When it's terminated, they are terminated. So forever gone.
And I suspect our future resolution will be very clear
Yes.
about that. I have no other questions.
Thank you. Councilmember Dewar.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a few points of context. I have four for the people watching at home. There are, as you may see elsewhere in society, inflationary pressures, staffing shortages that are impacting us at the city. And staff has told us that in 2022, new police operating and street operating levies will be necessary in order to maintain the current levels of service. Thereafter, in 2023, new capital infrastructure and parks operating capital levies will also be needed. It's hard to predict the future, see what's ahead, but it's possible the cycle could repeat. The second, and I've campaigned on this a couple of times, but in my view, Beavercreek Police Department is understaffed. They do a tremendous job of what they have, but if we consider the number of uniformed officers divided by the number of shifts, other factors like sickness or time off of vacation, there are sometimes too few officers on patrol at any given time. I think it'd be prudent to increase the overall number. The third point of context is a medium to long-term issue in our community is the infrastructure. Some of our roads are very good, but I drive a 2008 vehicle, and I sometimes get nervous in places. Staff does a great job of finding grants. They do a really tremendous job, but some of the roads are suffering. So I estimate that we have some time available, but it's hard to tell. And infrastructure doesn't fail all at once or suddenly. There just may be a tipping point where there are challenges. And none of what's in the levees address stormwater as well, which are a major concern to a number of neighborhoods. Finally, I have 3 kids in school, and I'm concerned about the future of the schools in terms of how they'll be funded. And so the question for us on council is what to do. We could do nothing, but a vote to do nothing would be a decrease in services given inflationary measures. We could opt to put levies to catch up, but again, there'd be the issue of property tax. The third option is the income tax. So the decision, as it should be, is yours. Depending on what we put on the ballot, and we have to decide that. But I think it's important to know that the budget for the city is lean as it is. There's not much that can be cut. I've asked a lot of questions of city manager, and he's always been very thorough in terms of our bookkeeping. So I'd like to see this debate unfold more. I'd like to see it go to a second reading. I'd like to hear from the people, which way do you want to go? Tough decisions will be needed to be made by us. But at the baseline, I think we need more officers for our police department. We need to shore up some things. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilmember Garcia.
Thank you. I appreciate the conversation on this. I actually was against putting this back on the ballot again this past May. I felt that we didn't have enough time to fully flesh out the details. My biggest concern was that we weren't hearing enough from residents as to why there was such a narrow margin in the pass-fail, and I think that was addressed. Mr. Crisera did a great job in his presentation. But one of the things was that staff did reach out to residents, worked with the Fair Funding Committee, and worked with other residents to see why people voted against the tax initiative in and of itself. And I think a lot of those concerns from residents were addressed with some of the changes that were made, specifically talking about the levies, as well as laying out in detail what we would do with the extra funds, specifically the police department. I agree with Councilmember Dewar that I would like to see this go to a further discussion. I would like to see a little bit more about the city charter, what we could do with that. I appreciate the trust that has been given to us by the residents, but I also appreciate the concerns that we will not always be up here because there are term limits imposed on us. So if there is some more hard research we can get, Mr. McHugh, I do appreciate all the information on the legal side as far as the Ohio Revised Code goes, because that drives pretty much everything that we're doing. If we had been a city that had an income tax previously, some of these options would be available to us now, but unfortunately, the state's changed and we're more restricted now than we've been in the past. So I would like to see this go to a second reading as far as being put on the ballot. A reminder to all residents, we are not approving an income tax. We are just talking about language that would go on a ballot. So that's it for me. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councilmembers? Yes.
Can I just make another point, I think, as raised by council so far. So one thing to consider too is that when you're, you can put certain things in the charter, but when you're adopting an income tax code, even if you say you're going to do certain things in the charter, the income tax code will have to be adopted by a specific process, right? So, you're still going to be doing different legislation, which, you're going there's more of an opportunity for the charter and the income tax not necessarily line up when everything is said and done.
Sure.
Because the income tax code is not going in the charter, so only specific things will go in the charter. So, I really do think that the best way is, either one, eliminate the 1% and let council adopt an income tax code up to 1% and just adopt a code. But the alternative here is, and what really gives the citizens even more control, is an income tax code. Here it is. You get the whole code, you get to vote on it. So just, the charter does have limitations too.
Thank you. Councilmember Schwartz?
Well, having a mask malfunction here. Thank you, Mayor. Just to echo some of the comments made by my fellow council members, I too am concerned about our police department. I am concerned about this outstanding infrastructure for which we don't have any funding, or we don't have a mechanism in place in which we can address those things. I'm also concerned about grants. We heavily rely on grants, and those are not promised. Those aren't always going to be there or could possibly go away at any time. And our heavy reliance on those causes me concern as a representative of this city and this community. I really would be disappointed if we were to not be able to do some of the projects that we have projected because our grant funding has been removed. And so that is something that we don't have control over, whereas an income tax is something that we do have control over. As Councilmember Garcia stated, ultimately this is up to the residents. This isn't something that we are adopting as an income tax right here. This is something that we're placing on the ballot for you to tell us whether or not you want to vote for it. We have taken surveys, we have talked to residents, we've been out and about hearing the concerns that residents had with the original income tax that we proposed a year and a half ago. And so I think that we have taken a lot of consideration into the viewpoints of our citizens, and I think we've incorporated a lot of those. And hopefully, during the next reading and during some additional research, we'll be able to address some of the concerns that were voiced today. And I just appreciate all the residents coming out. I appreciate the input that is provided. That's all. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilmember Curran?
Thank you, Your Honor. I would like to echo what the other members have said. I don't have too much more to add to it. Just again, I want to encourage the residents of Beavercreek, as has been said, to let us know, voice their opinion, have a good dialogue, a constructive dialogue on this, and ultimately it is in the hands of the people of the city of Beavercreek. Thank you.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Adams?
Well, here again is, I'm back here, I'm the last one, so everything I wanted to say has been said. But there are a couple of things that have really kind of, I don't know, eaten away at me over the years that I've been up here, and I ran on a different way of financing our city. I work with the police department. I know the struggles that they're having over there with their officers. These guys are being asked to work untold number of hours, and it's just not good for them and not good for the community. We had a good incident back in last winter with the street department when we had 3 storms in a row trying to keep up. We need more people. The way things are set up right now, the citizens are paying for all of that. We're going to have to ask for more money because those costs keep going up. So if this income tax, whether we put it up and it's voted down or whatever, there's other levies going to have to come. The police department, as an example, is going to have to put on something just to maintain. That's not to grow, it's just to maintain. So who's going to pay for that? That's going to be the citizens of Beavercreek if we stay with the property taxes. Do we want to put that burden on the fixed income people, the ones that are out here that have supported this community for so many years? We have, and the numbers are going to vary, the ones I've looked at, anywhere from 75 to 90% of the people that work in Beavercreek do not live here. But I've also asked the police department to do some reports for me on the commission of crimes and accidents and different things like that, and invariably that number is 75 to 80% of what they address comes from non-residents. I think they should start paying their fair share. Well, everybody's saying pay their fair share. I think they need to start paying their fair share to us to maintain those services, because we try to keep and maintain high-level services out here, but we're going to reach a point where we're not going to be able to do that. The stormwater issues, they just keep growing, and we have no funding at all set up to do that. So I'm not sure what the answer is, and from the charter or whatever like that, I can't speak to what other councils will do after this, but I know I commit to doing whatever we need to do to make this a better city to live in, so it's less expensive for the citizens of our community to live here. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Well, a few comments that I'm going to add. Everybody's comments were good, including the public input we had tonight. One of the things we try to do, and we've seen this happen with our neighbors, we've seen it happen with us. When you have a disaster of one sort or another, whether it's natural disaster or whether it's a pandemic, you get, and your funding sources get messed up sometimes. And so this, to me, is really a diversification. This is a way of saying, okay, we're going to try to raise revenue from several sources versus just one. That way we are better protected if something was to happen again, similar to what's happened over the last several years. So that is my strongest point for supporting an income tax. Obviously, the second strongest point is that we have so many people that are using our infrastructure and not paying while they work here. So those are the two. Will I enjoy the benefit of having a lower property tax? I will, at least for a while. But that said, there are things that the charter's there to protect the people. And while I am not about to suggest that we put this ordinance as a charter amendment, I believe there are at least 2 things that could go as a charter issue. One, the credit for the tax paid. There's no reason that can't, and I'm not saying it needs to go on tomorrow, but there's no reason that issue can't be clarified in the charter. the fact, even though I truly believe, and my interpretation and our legal staff's interpretation is that we could not impose an additional tax even if we wanted to, but if we needed to clarify that in our charter, that it can't be done without a vote of the people, then I'm more than happy to support something like that as well. So, based on our legal advice currently, if we do not have the authority to put a charter change on the ballot in May, then I would be more than willing to commit to request that you on council join me and create a charter review committee immediately after the May election, should this pass, so that we can put these protections on the November ballot. Now, where there might be one or two other items that might be discovered that could go and be better protected in the charter, so be it, if there are. But those two in particular, I tend to agree with some people that think that's a proper place to protect it. The other side of that coin is, even if it could go on in the May for a charter and an ordinance, I'm not thoroughly convinced that's a good idea. We could have the charter pass and the ordinance not, or vice versa. I mean, I would rather come back, just as somebody indicated, I think it was Brian, that many cities came back and changed their charter afterwards. The other point is that, as Steve pointed out, this is just the beginning. Should it pass, we still now have to create this mechanism through multiple ordinances, and so we don't need an immediate conflict with charter. But I will give my word that I will support a charter review committee to be appointed should this pass in May, and hopefully get it on the ballot for whatever changes need to be made. So that said, I think that's about as far as I can go. I appreciate the input tonight. Again, diversification. Beaver Creek is a survivor. We're going to survive. The question just becomes, how well do we survive? Do we have cold cereal and milk, or do we have a hot meal once in a while? So, that said, I am finished. Any further comments from council before we move on? All right, I'll ask for a motion to move this on to the second reading.
Motion to move ordinance 21-24 to the second reading.
Second.
Any further discussion? I have a motion to move ordinance 21-24 on to the second reading. Let's see. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion carries. Thank you, everybody, for being here this evening. And please continue the communications. We all need that as much as you want to give it, so we appreciate it. And speaking, one of the comments that was made a minute ago was living on grants. The next three resolutions on the agenda tonight are grant applications. And this is just one of those things, and we will continue to do these, but someday they'll dry up. And some days we just won't get them, and that's just one of those things. But like I say, we are survivors. We are going to work our tail off to get whatever revenue we can, wherever we can. And with that said, the next item on the agenda is Resolution 21-47.
Resolution number 21-47, a resolution authorizing submission of an application for the Ohio Parks and Recreation Association Foundation Program Development Grant.
Thank you. And tonight we have our esteemed director of the Beavercreek Senior Center, Mr. Tyler Barlodge. Lodge. I can't pronounce it. Sorry, Tyler. Mr. Tyler.
Thank you, and good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, City Council. It's a pleasure to be before you today. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Tyler Barloggy. I'm the supervisor at the Beavercreek Senior Center. So this resolution is for the Ohio Parks and Recreation Foundation Program Development Grant. The focus of this grant is to provide seed money to member agencies to develop new programs or activities not funded by their budgets. So the Parks, Recreation, and Culture Division would like to apply for this grant in order to receive money to start a TRX suspension training program at the Beavercreek Senior Center. The city would request $2,489.35 from the OPRA Foundation, with the city matching that same amount from our 2021 operating budget. This funding would allow us to purchase equipment for the class, including 13 suspension trainers, 13 wall anchors, and 20 weeks of instructor payment while we get the program started. This application is due November 15th, and staff is seeking permission to apply for this grant to secure funding for this TRX program. The staff recommendation is the adoption of this resolution.
Thank you. Thanks, Tyler. Any discussion, any questions on the resolution? Please, just jump in.
Yeah, Your Honor, Tyler, is this tied into the walls inside the exercise room? Is it things like this?
They are the straps with handles that you would see anchored into a wall. The location for this would ideally be our great room, which they could be taken down when not in use.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Chuck, you're in for a real workout.
Yeah. Who else? Somebody had comment over here?
I was going to say, I appreciate the opportunity to review this grant. Chuck, TRX is great workout. It's very good for whole body. It's very good just for sustainability, so I appreciate that, and I think everybody who has the opportunity to participate in it will benefit from it health-wise. So thank you.
I agree.
Anyone else? Do I have a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I would move to approve Resolution 21-47.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve Resolution 21-47. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion carries. All right, you're still on the hot seat. Next is Resolution 21-48, but let the clerk read the resolution first, please.
Resolution number 21-48, a resolution authorizing submission of an application for the Ohio Parks and Recreation Association Foundation Administrative Grant.
Thank you. Now you're on top.
So this resolution, also from the Ohio Parks and Recreation Foundation, is an administrative grant focusing on providing necessary training for staff. The Parks, Recreation, and Culture Division would like to apply for this grant opportunity in order to receive money to provide training to our staff and volunteers on our transportation software's new Evolution platform. We currently use EcoLane to schedule our trips and get real-time feedback throughout the day. Everybody will be required to transition to this at some point in 2022, so we would like to be early adopters and get professional training to ensure a seamless transition. The City of Beavercreek would request $1,000 from the OPRA Foundation, with the city matching that same amount from the Senior Center's 2021 operating budget. This application is also due November 15th. And staff is seeking permission to apply for this grant and is recommending adoption of this resolution.
Thank you. Questions? Comments?
Does that software coordinate with other agencies that use it as well, or is that just specific to the Beavercreek Transportation Program?
EcoLane is used by many different providers across the state. However, we are independent of those. We do not communicate in any way with them.
Thank you.
Anyone? Does this affect the driver's notepad things?
It might change your user interface a little bit. You might want to hop into this training.
Thumbs down.
Hopefully for the better. It's said to be more streamlined and user-friendly.
Okay, thank you. Mm-hmm. All right, do I hear a motion?
Mayor, I move to approve Resolution 21-48.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve Resolution 21-48. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion carries, Tyler. Thank you. Next is Resolution 21-49.
Resolution number 21-49, a resolution authorizing submission of an application for the Greene County Council on Aging special funding for transportation programs grant.
One more time, sir.
All right. And so this resolution is from the Greene County Council on Aging. Their board of directors has approved up to $10,000 for senior center transportation programs. The Parks, Recreation, and Culture Division would like to apply for this grant opportunity in order to receive money to purchase replacement AEDs for our transportation program, as well as new T-shirts for transportation volunteers. The Council on Aging does not require match funding for this grant, and the city would request $10,000 from the council. We would get 6 replacement AEDs and 115 volunteer T-shirts. Staff is seeking permission to apply for this special funding for transportation, for new emergency equipment and apparel for volunteers. And the recommendation is adoption of this resolution.
Thank you. Comments, questions?
Would this replace all of your AEDs?
This would. We have 4 manufactured in 2014 and 2 from 2012. All 6 of those are discontinued.
So that would put them on the same battery and pad
Yes,
replacement cycle.
it'll
That
also
was
be
just
easier for
a good
budgeting
thing,
purposes
yeah.
to have them on the same replacement schedule.
Good, yeah.
Anyone else?
Yes, Mayor. What's the breakdown of AEDs to T-shirts?
As far as cost,
Uh-huh.
sorry, wrong here. Might not have it in front of me, but 6 AEDs we do have a quote for. I believe it is $8,995. The quote for the 115 T-shirts is just over $1,100. So we may be a couple hundred over the $10,000 that would come out of the senior center budget.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Do I have a motion?
Move to approve Resolution 21-49.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve Resolution 21-49. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion carries. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Let's not wait till the last minute next time. No, I'm just kidding. Oh, me. All right, decision items. Acceptance of the third quarter financial analysis.
Good evening again.
Again,
I only have good news. That's all I'm going to give you right now. So, the golf course went this year has met their highest revenue numbers for the golf course. It's been owned by the city. It was 2005, and we exceeded that revenue total just this week, I guess. So,
fantastic.
just wanted to let you know that they're doing a good job out there, and with the weather permitting, maybe we'll make a really big dent in that, make it far exceed that number as our new standard. The rest of it's good news. Fuel taxes, again, with the stay-at-home situation, people not traveling with all the restrictions with travel, the gas tax is finally getting back up to where it was pre-pandemic, which is a good thing for, again, our infrastructure and for replacing some of our roads and streets and repaving them. So that's getting back to the pre-pandemic numbers, which is good to see. And also hotel and motel with the restrictions that have been opened up a little bit on them, base travel, that type of thing. We're actually seeing them exceed pre-pandemic, which again makes sense because we did have 2 hotels open in the last couple of years too, so you would expect to see that, but it came back a lot faster than what we had expected, so that's a good sign also. Again, recreation, the senior center, they're starting to pick back up too. That's looking good there for the end of the year. And the only thing that's really still hurting right now is interest revenue, that pretty much non-existent at this point. So even though we have funds out there that are being invested, there's really no return. So just to keep everybody up to date. But you have my detailed report, and I'm sure you've all read it, and it's fascinating. But the issue right now is that, again, we're getting back to what the new normal is, and again, that's good to see.
Moving in the right direction. Comments, questions?
Mr. Mayor, I had one question, Bill, I'm sorry. The first thing you mentioned was about revenues at the golf course. Is that all revenue accounts? Golf,
Yeah, the
food
total
and beverage?
revenue. So, I mean, basically all categories are up, except obviously food and beverage, but
Well, but your
2005, the total revenue that we generated from the year 2005, which was our best year, we finally exceeded that. So, I mean, after all these years,
I think what's significant about that, though, is that we don't have much of a food and beverage operation there this year, and we still exceeded the total revenue. So that's fantastic, and something to celebrate out
it
there.
is. Again, we've had some really good weather here for Ohio, too. I mean, it's been pleasant. We haven't had those wide swings, a lot of big storms coming in for days upon days. And so, again, that all leads to golfers getting out there and enjoying the course. And the course is in pretty good shape, except for maybe one hole. But
Careful you don't bring that bad weather on us in the coming months.
well, it is the middle of November.
Right.
And again, the salt barn, we've got that full, ready to go. So, I mean, it's coming. We see it in the future. But for right now, Steve's just happy that it's 60 degrees and sunny out there. So,
Thank you.
Thank you. Do I have a motion?
Your Honor, I move the acceptance of the third quarter 2021 financial analysis.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to accept the third quarter 2021 financial analysis. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same. Motion carries. Thank you. Moving on to council time. You know, a certain individual to my right here is absolutely right. He's been the last amongst the council members for the last 2 years. So now I would invite the vice mayor to lead us off.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm not sure how to react to that. First of all, I just want to thank the residents who showed up tonight to voice their opinions, no matter what it is. It's really good to see our community get involved in our community, because it's important to hear those things. And you know, it's not just 7 of us always agreeing on things. We do have disputes up here from time to time, but we usually come up with a general consensus. But I do thank the residents who did show up, both pro and con. Election day was last week, and I'd like to congratulate our current council members, Garcia, Dewar, and Schwartz, on their re-election, or their election to a 4-year term. We look forward to working with you for the next 2 years. I was able to attend a ribbon cutting at Rez's Coffee Shop on North Fairfield earlier this week. Well, actually last Friday. And if you get an opportunity to go there, I highly encourage it. They've got pretty good coffee. One thing I found is that their coffee beans are, once they're prepared, they sit no longer than a week, so you're getting fresh coffee. I was able to be involved with the Beavercreek Rotary installing the flags at Be Hope Church, getting ready for Veterans Day, which is coming up this Thursday, which was Councilman Chuck Kern over there was there with us, trying to find those holes in the ground, but we found them all. And but that's always a good thing to be involved in. Speaking of Veterans Day, please try to attend. This is Thursday. I think it's 2 o'clock. The mayor will be running the program again, and they do say if you want to come out, bring a chair. I don't think there will be any seats out there, so bring a chair for that. Well, I'll do this one first. Evaluations are due as soon as you can get them in. I sent them out to you about a week ago. I've received a couple back, so please get those into me as quickly as you can. And on a personal note, I just want to say I'm a little disappointed in whoever set fire to the AstroTurf out at Owen's place. It just amazes me that somebody would damage something like that that's designed for underprivileged or kids that just have disabilities. Why they would do something like that is beyond me. I apologize for being upset about that, but I just can't get over that. This does not make sense. the golf course was bad, but this to me is just a whole lot worse, that they would do something like that. So, and with that, Mr. Mayor, I will let somebody else talk.
There you go. Thank you. All right, we're just going to go exact reverse the last time. Councilmember Curran, you're up.
Thank you, Your Honor. Attended the broomstick bash. That was a optimist effort, and that was really kind of fun to see all the kids and everything going on out there that night. That was really kind of a fun activity. And certainly Mayor Stone had his event. Very, very active group of people were there, and I think they really enjoyed themselves very much. As Vice Mayor said, participated in the Rotary flag program, establishing all the flags for our heroes. And I'd encourage everybody in the city to stop out there and look at the program and look at the names of the various heroes on the different flags. It's really something to behold. Yeah. Thank you.
Very good. Councilmember Schwartz.
Here I go again. Thanks, Mayor. I too had the pleasure of attending Reza's ribbon cutting on Friday. It was an excellent event and encourage anyone to go out there. As Vice Mayor alluded to, the staff is extraordinarily knowledgeable on their product, on the different machines and things they have, and so I definitely got a lesson in coffee beans and coffee machinery, and so I encourage anyone who's interested to go out. It's definitely a very family-friendly, very military-friendly establishment, and so please welcome them to Beavercreek. I also attended the Broomstick Bash with Councilmember Curran. It was a great event. Biggest thing I had to do was keep him from taking away the Batmobile. We were getting ready to leave and he was trying to hop in for a ride, so successfully thwarted that. And last but certainly not least, over the past 8 weeks, I haven't really shared this, but I have been attending the Citizens Police Academy with the Beavercreek Police Department. And it has been such an extraordinary experience. I would encourage any residents, any local business owners who have the time to go through and do this. I mean, even having served on council, being married to a law enforcement officer, there were so many things that I learned, and it really reminded me how proud I am of the police department that we have in this city. And so we have our graduation on Thursday, so hopefully I will be graduating. I don't know if there's a pass or fail test, so to be determined, but that's all. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilmember Garcia.
Yes, thank you. We met back up again with Miami Valley Regional Planning Commission, so a number of updates from that. The Transportation Improvement Program added an approved amendment for Beavercreek Factory Road from Research Trail to Nutter Park. This is going to widen the roadway to 3 lanes with curb, gutter, and stormwater, and sidewalks on both sides of the roadway. This project is going to connect the widening work that is planned on Factory Road as part of the US 35 Super Street improvements. And the proposed sidewalks will connect into Creekside Trail Bikeway, and a pedestrian refugee island is planned where Creekside Trail crosses Factory Road. So really great funding opportunities for our city for something that we can do. We discussed a little bit about a resolution to support the annual 2% reduction for safety targets regarding the number of fatalities and the number of serious injuries in car accidents that was approved by our committee. It's something that goes a little hand in hand with the upcoming Ohio resolution that they're passing in the State House to talk about using your cell phone as a primary offense. We're working towards reducing those accidents, and the state is also working with us hand in hand. We are at 95% recovery rate from the 2019 tornado, and MVRPC is actively working towards the formation of a regional community organization active in disasters that is going to partner with religious organizations and other faith-based community organizations to be that first response with our disaster response partners. There currently is the ongoing ReTree program to plant over 1,000 trees along the storm route, so they're in the process of doing that right now as well. And then the last thing we discussed was the comprehensive economic development strategy. Our job growth is currently outpacing our population growth in the Miami Valley region. So we currently have a decline in age groups of 15 to 29 years of age entering the workforce, as well as 50 to 64 years of age. That more is retirement center, so we should be congratulating those folks as well. Bless you. But we do have a strategic priority in place working on economic development. We're going to have a final draft coming out from MVRPC later this year for review. So a lot of good things coming out of MVRPC. I know we discussed, Councilmember Schwartz and Mayor Stone mentioned that we are living on grants, and MVRPC works really well with our community. I think that the TIP amendment, I'm sorry, is one that shows what we really get for the city of Beavercreek through that participation. So. That's it for me and everyone. I hope you enjoy the Veterans Day holiday, and thank you again to everyone who has served and currently serves in our military.
Thank you. Councilmember Dewar.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to thank everyone for voting on November the 2nd. There's several very important local races and issues, and it's always important and useful to see how people vote and break those down as well. I'd like to offer my congratulations to presumptive Vice Mayor-elect Garcia, Councilwoman Schwartz. You're wonderful colleagues, and I'm very thankful to serve with you for the next 4 years, so thank you. I'd like to welcome the new businesses, Rez's and Fit Nutrition, that I've had a chance to try. Wonderful additions to Beavercreek, and welcome to the community. I had Rez's a number of times in downtown Dayton, and they are very family friendly, and it's neat to see that in Beavercreek as well. But for businesses in Beavercreek, please reach out. I think those of us on council love to highlight and frequent those businesses, and it's a great opportunity to talk about what you're doing in our community. Finally, a hearty well done to Mike Thonero and staff for representing Beavercreek so well in the 11th annual snow day. A very nice story on WDTN, both TV and digital, so kudos to you and your staff. So, thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilmember Bales.
Well, now I know what Vice Mayor Adams feels like.
He's probably missing it. I might give him another opportunity.
I think you deserve another opportunity. Everybody has really said everything, but really, congratulations to newly elected council members. Look forward to working with you. Want to commend the Parks Department, Tyler, for your applications for the grants. I'm very happy that we are so successful with the grants that we do seek, although I do agree that it's really not the most sustainable long-term method of funding a local government, but I'm glad you're doing it. We've talked about the Veterans Day ceremony Thursday, 2 o'clock. Not only did the Rotary Club put out a lot of flags, but the Optimist Club is also going to be putting out hundreds and hundreds of flags this week throughout Beavercreek. So you'll see way more flags go up as the week inches towards Veterans Day. I too am excited to go to the Citizens Police Academy graduation this week and watch Councilwoman Schwartz get her badge. Maybe? I don't know. What do they get? A certificate? Anyway.
I'm grading the test, so maybe not.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe. The last thing I'll say is next Monday and next Wednesday, this council will be reviewing the city's 2022 proposed budget. Those meetings are open to the public, so if anybody is interested in attending, please feel free. They're right here in this room at 5 o'clock. So thank you.
Thank you. Have you worked up enough to do it again now?
Oh, no, that was fun.
Okay, all right. All right, well, Mayor's time. Again, Veterans Day, as everybody has said, and I think Pete's going to have a slide here in a minute that'll show you our guest speaker and the others that are participating. No, it's fine. But yes, we do have Colonel Cassie Barlow, who is retired, and she was a past base commander. Many of you know her from other activities. She's involved in the community in all different ways. Then music by Spirit of Freedom with the Wright Pat Air Force Band of Flight. And we had them at Rotary Friday. So we get to double dip a little bit on there. They're just an excellent little group. Pastor Joe from Patterson Park will be joining us, and of course the VFW and the American Legion are always a big part of that celebration. So somebody already said bring your own chair if you feel like I need to sit. but the weather is supposed to be in the 60s, and no rain forecast till late that day. So it should be a wonderful day to come out and relax a little bit and honor our veterans. Reses, I was at the ribbon cutting for Reses, and I just wanted to add that that is locally owned and operated. They are a long-term family that is several generations to the area, and so they are, you know, while the business is being welcomed to the community, they are already part of our community. So that's always good that we have our own people that are wanting to make our community a little bit better as well. We talked about grants earlier, and yes, we do live on grants, but the second thing we live on in this city is volunteers. And I stopped by Friday, the senior center. They had a casino night for the volunteers at the senior center. Talk about having some fun. Now, these people were having some fun. Now, I'm not 100% sure if it was the volunteers or the staff having the most fun.
Yeah.
But it was fun. They had music, they had casino tables, they had dinner of some sort. I wasn't there that early for whatever it was they ate, but apparently a lot of wonderful comments from the people that attended. And so, you know, volunteers are just hard to beat. I mean, you just cannot appreciate them enough. So anyway, Tyler, thanks for doing that for our volunteers. I know you got a lot of compliments on it as well. I know it was mentioned about Owens Place, and the last comment I had from Gussie was that there's a good chance that this was an accident. And I hope that's correct. I hope it wasn't vandalism, but either way, what the thoughts are, either way, the individual should not have been on the field, but it may hopefully have been an accident. But anyway, we'll move forward from that. I too wish to congratulate those that were successful in the ballot this year, and welcome the Vice Mayor-elect to, and we've been Mayor and Vice Mayor together 2 years before. So I look forward to working with all of you for the next 2 years, and along with the existing council members. And I think we're moving the right direction, and I think we will. I think we'll have a good couple years, and then somebody else can take over. But anyway, thank you very much, and thanks for your service. That said, we will move to the city manager's report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just briefly tonight, Senior Center hosts Veterans Day celebration. That's tomorrow at 11 a.m. and they're going to have the Beavercreek Strummers performing and Quilts of Valor presented to 20 veterans who had already registered previously. And then there's some lunch prices free to veterans, and you see the lunch prices there. Sign up is required in advance, so you better be calling the Senior Center tomorrow morning if they're not already sold out. I wouldn't doubt it. That the seniors do know how to party. That is for sure. And we thank you to the sponsor of this spring of Miami Valley. Mayor's already mentioned. Everybody has mentioned the Veterans Ceremony Thursday. It is a great ceremony. I would like to thank staff who helps put this together, but Mayor Stone really is involved in this. He helps us out with speakers and the band and different things. He really has a lot of input in that especially being a veteran himself. But most of these, such as the Memorial Day as well, he really helps us. So we do appreciate that, Mr. Mayor. So I hope to see you on Thursday at 2 p.m. at Veterans Memorial Park. And just on Veterans Day, normally a lot of the local governments and banks and things are closed. Way before my time in the contractual things of how which day got what day. Veterans Day, the City Hall and Police Department are here, but the City of Beavercreek Municipal Maintenance Facility, which is basically the Public Service Division and Parks Division, will be closed in observance of Veterans Day. But again, the City Hall and police will be open. And that's all I have tonight.
All right, well, thank you. And I'm going to back up just for a little note. The Veterans Day event at the Senior Center is Tuesday, as already been said. But Chrissy called me today and said, can I drive on Tuesday? Now, you know, I forgot all about veterans. But no, I'm just kidding. You tell Chrissy she better treat me well Tuesday then, okay? All right.
Do they have any openings? Can you go to that lunch?
No, Tyler?
There might be a few.
Might be a...
You better grab them in the morning.
And one on the bus. All right, moving on. Citizen comments. This is the time when any resident can come up and address council on any issue. This is not a discussion time. This is just a comment time. So please come up and give us your name and address. And we ask that you limit your comments to about 3 minutes.
Chad Wielding, same address, haven't moved yet.
Okay, Chad.
I know, you're wishing. I just wanted to follow up.
Did he point at me?
Just wanted to follow up on our discussion earlier, and I appreciate everybody's acknowledgement of some of our concerns. So, I guess for me, it's like, let's not be afraid to really make this thing work. So, we talk about termination and we talk about by resolution, but nothing in this compels this body to do that resolution, to tell the auditor to terminate. So if you're going to do that, state it in this. So it's in writing and the power is there. And if not, automate it. Just make it happen.
Chad, we're doing that at the same time we're voting to put it on the ballot.
Okay.
So it will be done at the same time.
Okay, we don't have that in the resolution. That comes later. So that will be something we can look forward to. So the thing that's kind of, we kind of dance around with, and words kind of go past each other when it comes to the ordinance versus the charter. So I wrote this down so I could say it properly. So citizens are not voting on this ordinance. You are resolving to place the question of collecting an income tax on the ballot, which means the sitting ordinance would then apply, right? So whereby that you have voted on the ordinance and the city has not, the citizens have not voted on the ordinance, you have the power to change any part of that ordinance by majority vote of this sitting body, right? Because there is some things that the charter, if we vote for it, it cannot be changed because you can't change the charter. But there are provisions where if an ordinance is voted on by the citizens, a council cannot come by after and make changes to those ordinances. I recall this in the past. This has come up a few times. So, because we're not doing this by initiative, not initiative referendum, where if we brought it forward and put it in there, it could not be changed except by another initiative. So let's work this out to make sure that if you can, and if I remember, the charter does not state that you could not put a charter amendment on the ballot. It just says you cannot amend the charter yourself. I don't think the Charter Review Committee has a lock on this, and I'll go look, because I don't think the word only is in there, right? So let's make that happen as part of this. Make those charter amendments, if you truly believe in that, happen as part of this resolution or this ordinance. And then that would put us not at odds as normal, but we start looking at we're hearing each other, right? Let's hear each other this time. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Chad. Anyone else?
Brian Jarvis, 825 Timberwood Drive, Beavercreek. One of the things I heard tonight from Mr. Casera was about the golf course. I'm always pleased to hear great news about the golf course. It's been run so well. Steve Click, Mayor Stone, Pete Landrum, the city manager, just everyone has really pulled together, because that was, I can recall 12 years ago, that was something really, really tough. It's going to be paid off in a year or so, and owned free and clear. That's fantastic. There have been, in the past 9 years, there have been 13 other golf courses that have folded. And this one has benefited from that and is doing well. So it's great to hear that good news. During our research on income taxes, we came across one city in Ohio, the city of Sharonville. It levies 0 mills of property tax millage on its residents. We thought that was a mistake at first, but we went to its CAFR, and it says the city of Sharonville is one of few cities in Ohio, we just found one, that does not levy property taxes. Thus, the city relies upon income tax revenue. So it's totally opposite Beavercreek's. They've got a population of 13,600. 27,000 people come into work every day there, and that's where they get their revenue from and their residents benefit. So spreading out the tax base among more people is the way to go. And something that I just need to make sure that I understand again and again, this will really help me to grasp this concept. Typically, an ordinance that the council votes on and approves, the council or future councils can change. But once the citizens vote on this ordinance, it can only be changed by a vote of the people. Otherwise, there may be potential severe legal ramifications if council tries to then modify something the residents voted on. That is what I gathered from today's discussion. Again, that's just my take on that. And so, again, hopefully I'm clear there. As for our police department, I was doing some checking. In 2000, population 37,984, there were 46 police officers. That's about 12.11 officers per 10,000 residents. Today's population of 46,549, there's still just 50 police officers. That's 10.74 officers per 10,000 residents. We're backing where I noticed that the number of incidents the police responded to has gone up by 20% from 2019 to 2020. That is a problem. We need more police officers. I'm not even sure if 5 will do. The standard is much higher than that, but again, that's a start. So I'm looking forward to all this. Again, the city is just really pleased to live here. I've lived here for almost 20 years now. My wife was born and raised here, a Beavercreek High School graduate, and when she wanted to move here, I was in Dayton, and I said, no, let's not move to Beavercreek. I've never been there before, never lived there before, but she was born and raised here, and so this is a great move for her. Great community. Thanks for all that you all do. Appreciate that.
You as well, Brian, and we're glad you moved here. All right. Anyone else like to address council this evening? Seeing none, we will move on. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn, Your Honor.
I have a motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you very much.